Welcome back. Just spitballing here, but it's never a good day when your former campaign chair pleads guilty and reaches a deal to cooperate with the special prosecutor investigating you. Now, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders says today's guilty plea by Paul Manafort has nothing to do with President Trump. Only time will tell about that. As for President Trump, his Twitter machine has been strangely silent today. The one thing we know for sure is, despite the claims of his TV lawyer Rudy Giuliani, the special counsel's investigation is about to wrap up. Clearly, it's not even close. It's not been a great week for the president. New polls show his approval dropping into the 30s, and as he promises FEMA is ready to help the victims of Hurricane Florence, President Trump clings to his claim almost 3,000 people didn't die from Hurricane Maria a year ago, despite multiple reviews which show they did. And joining us for more, our State Representative Julio Gonzalez, the founder of the FederalistPages.com, Rodney Jones, president of the Manatee County NAACP, and Manatee School Board Chair Charlie Kennedy, a proud registered independent. And Julio, let me start with you. In addition to being an orthopedic surgeon, you are also an attorney. So when you see that the president's former campaign chair not only pled guilty, but agrees to cooperate with the special counsel investigating Russia collusion and everything else, what's your reaction?
I'm in a sea of lack of information is the problem in which to have a reaction. Obviously, is a source of concern, but in point of fact, the allegations that for which he had a plea deal took place 10 years prior, had nothing to do with the presidency and his campaign and President Trump's campaign. So the real question is what's going on behind the closed doors? What are we not being exposed to? And I think that will be very telling moving forward.
Rodney, the way pleas agreements work is you're pleading guilty to a set of charges, but when you cooperate, it could be about anything either related or unrelated to those charges.
I don't know. The only thing I could say, President Trump picked a very interesting bedfellows because it appears that there's trouble everywhere. Usually where there's smoke, there'll eventually be fire. So you know, people can rationalize what's going on and talk around it, but I think there's something there, what it is. I refuse to get lost in it because we've got really other pressing issues, but I think where there's smoke, there's fire.
Charlie, I'm always asking people, what does this weigh on their mind? And you represent, 45% of the electorate that are registered independents. Does this concern you?
I've gotten to the point where I'm kind of numb to the Trumpisms and the Trump tweets. But yeah, I mean, here we are. The witch hunt has caught another witch again today, and Dr. Gonzalez is right. I mean, the events for which Manafort is being charged here were years ago, but Mueller can use them as leverage for more recent events. Specifically, I think the Trump Tower meeting, which has really been the crux of the Russian involvement with the 2016 Trump campaign.
Right. We are just getting started. Our conversation on the week in Washington continues. Welcome back. We are talking about the week in politics, and joining us for more, our State Representative Julio Gonzalez, the founder of the FederalistPages.com, Rodney Jones, the president of the Manatee County NAACP, and Manatee School Board Chair Charlie Kennedy, a proud registered independent. Let's talk a little bit. Hurricane Florence is so much on our mind, and the president has promised a quick and good response to what's happening to our friends and families in the Carolinas, but he also made some interesting remarks this week about the response to Hurricane Maria almost a year ago, and he says his response, the government's response, gets an A++, whereas new studies come out showing that the death toll was far more significant than the president first admitted to, anywhere between 1,400 to close to 3,000. Julio, I'm wondering, given some of that research, and I know there are some disagreements about it, and the president's response, is it problematic?
Is what problematic?
That the president is still not acknowledging that a whole lot of people died there.
You know, what's problematic are the studies themselves. Particularly the latest studies is the one that's been done by George Washington. I had the opportunity to read about it and read actually the study, and I think I'm probably going to write an article on it, because essentially what they did is they sent 2 researchers to Puerto Rico. They interviewed. They also interviewed social media, admitted that social media was inadequate. They also interviewed individuals in government and found that the government infrastructure was inadequate to even make an assessment. And then they came out with a number that was extrapolated from the results of their interviews. Only 2 people interviewed. In the end, what ended up happening is to come up to that number of 3,000, they took all the deaths that occurred from September. Remember, the hurricane hit on September 20th, all the way to February.
Right. But Rodney, the president was saying in some of his tweets that they put down people who just died of old age. Obviously, that is not all that those researchers were talking about.
Yeah, I agree with the doctor over here that I think that those research, they have to be thoroughly vetted, and I'm not sure what vetting has to take place before people actually come out and present information. So I think it's definitely worth vetting. But you know, most people, if they're fans of President Trump, they agree with him no matter what he says. He could say anything, and they pretty much go along with it.
Charlie, I want to get your response to that, but we do have to take a commercial break. We are just getting warmed up on our conversation on the week in Washington, and it will continue after a quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are talking about the week in politics, and joining us for more are State Representative Julio Gonzalez, the founder of the FederalistPages.com, Rodney Jones, the president of the Manatee County NAACP, and Manatee School Board member Charlie Kennedy, a proud registered independent. And Charlie, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about the president's response to Hurricane Maria, and we have his tweet from earlier this week up on the screen, in which he said that if you look at the end there, a long time later, they started to report really large numbers like 3,000, and insisting that his administration and FEMA did a terrific job there, despite the research that has been said. In fact, the official death total from the Puerto Rican government has said that has made that higher number the official number.
Yeah, and I think no matter what number, what study you want to look at, what number you want to put your finger on, any neutral observer can see that it was not an A++ response. And this is just another example of the dynamic where Trump's base will just eat up and look for whatever he's going to say. And obviously, folks on the left, he could probably be telling the truth and they would disagree with that. But I think it's people like me who really look at both sides and really look to the truthfulness of candidates. And Trump, since he was a candidate, has had a truthfulness problem. And Maria's a perfect example where he kind of breezes in, breezes out. He came into Puerto Rico for a couple of hours, threw some rolls of paper towels at people, and jumped on his plane and left and declared it a success. And here we are a year later. He's still patting himself on the back, and this is just another case study in the Trump presidency.
And Julio, I know you've been thinking about this a great deal, considering your recent race for U.S. Congress, and there was a debate who's Trumpier in the race, and the question
I was.
and the question becomes, if you are to be a supporter of the president and get support from that base, do you have to toe the line on everything that comes out of the president's mouth? Does it trouble you in some sort of way?
Well, to the first part of your question, which is, do you have to toe the line and do you have to, pretty much kowtow to everything the president says? Look, if you're a congressional candidate, if you're going to be a member of Congress, you're going to be a member of legislature, then it is incumbent upon you to come to independent conclusions, study the problems independently, and decide for yourself. Now, your ideals and your conclusions may be very similar to those of the president's, but it's still incumbent upon you, if we're going to work the country the way it's supposed to work, to come to independent conclusions. The other one is, what are the, I guess, kind of paraphrasing, what is the consequences and what's it doing to our country? I think we're in a terrible situation right now as a country. I think we are in a situation where the people who are seeking public office and the people who are being subjected to scrutiny for serving in a public capacity, i.e. Supreme Court justices, which I'm sure we'll discuss later, are being subjected to a level of abuse and discreditation, if you will, that I have not seen in the history of our country. And it's really sad, and it's one of the biggest challenges that we have moving forward.
Rodney, meanwhile, you are embarked on an endeavor to increase voter turnout in Manatee County, especially among minority groups. And while we're debating all these things about what the president does and what it says, who's Trumpier, who is not, who's on the left and who's right, those running for office right now in Manatee County and Sarasota for that matter, are they addressing the issues that are most important to the community?
I think politics rules today now. I think they're more set on agendas than what's actually going on in the communities. You know, and to be honest with you, to Charlie's point, I think President Trump is largely responsible for a lot of the dysfunction that we see in the country, because well, maybe people were thinking it all along, but he actually opened Pandora's box by his own behavior. And any rational person that looks at our president has to be grossly concerned about his behavior, his character. I mean, what he's done to his own family and his wife. I mean, you know, I don't see how America. I mean, you're right. America is in trouble because we've substituted just good common sense and morality for politics. And politics should never supersede the needs of the people. And right now, it's kind of an elitist game. And I hope we see a rally of, I don't care Democrat or Republican who wins, but we get the best people in office. That's what's most important to me.
Julio, you know, a new poll came out today showing the generic ballot nationwide. Democrats have opened up a 10-point lead on Republicans in terms of who you want to go to Congress. You know, we have a lot of races around here, including the 16th congressional district, which has become a real national battleground. If you look, you know, both parties are spending millions now in Sarasota on this race here. Are you concerned about your party and whether it's going to be able to hold on to the Congress?
That's a great question. That's a question that consumes a lot of the forecast, the political forecast moving forward. It's an interesting discussion. I'm much more concerned about getting the answers substantively correct and moving forward with the correct answers. A few months ago, I would have told you there was going to be a huge blue wave. Recently, I told you that that maybe it was a trickle. Now it's kind of like in flux, and so I'm not sure which direction it's going to go. I think the more important thing to do is stick to your principles and deliver the message to your constituents.
Let's talk about the governor's race for a moment. The field is set. Now new polling is coming out showing that Andrew Gillum, the Tallahassee mayor, has opened up a 3 or 4 point lead over Ron DeSantis. That's within the margin of error in most of the polls there. Charlie, as an independent, and you are basically ground zero for who Gillum and DeSantis are looking for, which way are you leaning, and what do you want to see from both of them?
Wow. I think, I don't want to speak for everybody. I will only speak for myself and my observations of this race, but DeSantis clearly identified himself as a Trump Jr. His commercial where he's telling his child to build a wall with his blocks, I mean, that's what he went for and that's what he got. And therefore, I think that DeSantis really has a ceiling. And Andrew Gillum, on the other hand, I think we don't know how far he can go, because what we saw in the primary, why he was such a surprise, is that he drove voter turnout that nobody was expecting. And here's an underdog candidate with, I mean, he certainly had fundraising. He didn't have any of his own funds to contribute. But DeSantis has a ceiling. Gillum, we don't know where Gillum's ceiling is. And as we know, Florida is a battleground, and I think Gillum's turnout is going to carry a lot of other races.
Rodney, I'm interested in what you think about this, because we have often talked about voter turnout in the African American community, that it peaked in 2008 when Barack Obama was on the ballot. It has leveled off since then. Has the Gillum candidacy activated a base that really has not come out in a good long time?
Yeah, I think so, out of our millennials, and I think just, you know, just put Democrat and Republican aside, because I could care less about either, and I think I made that clear. I think he presents people looking for something different. You know, we look at what happened with our last governor. You know, let's get everyone to work, and you know, and we've got poison Everglades, and now red tide that has destroyed our ecosystem here along the coast. And people are looking for something different. And for the average hardworking person that's working 2 jobs and single moms, and people really still having a hard time in this time in the country where it's supposed to be, you know, one of the best times, as President Trump would say. Not everybody's seeing that, and not everyone's feeling that. So I think it is going to elate a base. And I'm going to tell you, don't count the minority community out of it at all, because I think we could be very much a swing vote.
And Julio, I'm wondering what your perspective is on this, because I know a lot of people who have been active in the Republican Party. You have liked Adam Putnam for a good long time, and you didn't know much about Ron DeSantis. In terms of how he is starting this campaign, how do you handicap this?
The Gillum DeSantis campaign. Well, it's interesting because I'm actually not only thinking about the Gillum DeSantis campaign, I'm also thinking about the Scott Nelson campaign.
Yeah.
And the Scott Nelson race, because I think it'll have implications there. I'm very concerned, as a conservative, I'm very concerned about the socialistic tendencies of the Gillum candidacy. But I agree with my two panel members. This is going to be all about turnout. And if you get a strong pro-Gillum turnout, it will affect our Senate race as well.
All right, we have to take one more quick break, and we'll be back for final thoughts in a moment. Stay with us. And our guest joining us right now for final thoughts. And Rodney, I want to start with you, because let's talk about the U.S. Senate race, Bill Nelson against Governor Rick Scott. A lot of Democrats out there have been really concerned about this race. Bill Nelson's lack of energy, his lack of being around a whole lot. And some have said that the best thing that could have happened to Senator Nelson is that Andrew Gillum won to activate the base here. But have you been concerned about that race?
I think anyone that's watched Senator Nelson has been concerned. Energy level, and then I'm just not a fan of people serving that long. I think it's counterproductive when you've been in office almost a half a century. But on the other hand, the other choice is Governor Scott, and I've never been a fan of Governor Scott, his views, his approach to things. So it's really an interesting race. We need to give Senator Nelson a little vitamin here, because his message here is it sounds very similar to what we heard years ago. It's basically the same exact messaging, but out of him or Governor Scott, I'm definitely a Nelson.
What about independents? I mean, it's really going to be independents that may well decide this race.
I think two things. As you said, I think Gillum's turnout is going to pull Senator Nelson, and I think all Nelson's campaign has to do is put up some pictures of Rick Scott next to President Trump, because I think this is going to be a toxic year for people who are attached to Trump. And that's just my take on it. Independents are going to run from anybody associated with Trump.
Julio, there have been a number of articles that I've read lately showing that Rick Scott is kind of running away from Trump.
Right.
Why?
Well, I think Rick, look, the state of Florida is a purple state. It has a slight, actually, Democrat plurality. And so the intelligent thing for a statewide race is to try to not disturb the pot to the best of your abilities. Clearly, President Trump will stir up emotions either for or against. I think when you talk about trying to split the Miami vote, split the Orlando vote, split the Tampa vote, you want to play it safe and you want to be your own person and deliver your own message.
Okay, we have to leave it there. But a personal note tonight. Tonight's broadcast marks the 3rd anniversary of ABC 7 at 7. Wow. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. 3 years we built a broadcast that has become the nightly town square, where everyone from presidential candidates to those running for governor to every state and federal office come to make their case to our viewers. We try every night to hold the powerful accountable and be the voice of all those trying to make ends meet in one of the most trying and challenging times in our history. It is not just about reporting the news viewers want to hear. It's also about telling the public what they need to hear. And I'm grateful to all the hardworking colleagues who helped me get this show on the air every night, all the brave guests who come here to mix it up at the trapezoid. The reality is, in this day and age, it is rare for a network affiliate to air a nightly broadcast of this type, which means our little together is really a treasure. And all of us, to you, thank you for your support. We want to thank our guests for being here tonight. State Representative Julio Gonzalez, the founder of thefederalistpages.com, Rodney Jones, president of the Manatee County NAACP, and Manatee School Board Chair Charlie Kennedy, a registered independent.